Self-care is a non-negotiable to be a highly functioning human, yet somehow mothers are amongst the most judged when it comes to this topic. Let's dive in.
This episode was inspired by some engaging back and forth on one of your more recent posts about leaving a 5-week-old baby with their father for
30 minutes.
30
max.
minutes. Why don't you dive in?
It sounds ridiculous when you say it like that, but it's the truth. So I guess to give you guys, if you did not see my post, this was from September 6th, so a couple weeks ago now. I put up a post on Instagram at Alessandra Skutnik, and it was just kind of revisiting a storyline from my early postpartum days with my first baby with Kai. This is what it said, just so you guys have context if you did not see the post. Here we go. So it said, I could hear my son screaming for my entire first postpartum workout. That was like the cover photo. And then I went on to explain that when I was 5 weeks postpartum, this was our firstborn baby. We had our home gym in the basement at the time. We were renting an apartment, a duplex, and we had some basement space, and we had just like basic equipment down there, and that's where we worked out. So we finally finished setting that up, and Kai was a fussier baby than Cora has been, but this was our first time being parents, so we didn't really know what to expect. Looking back, he probably had some colic, or he just overall was fussier in those probably first, 3 months?
5 years?
And it was never to the point, maybe it wasn't colic because he wasn't crying 24/7 nonstop. But
there were colicky streaks, and we had the colic drops or whatever those were.
We used gripe water, which I don't think there's any backing to it.
If you've watched Space Jam, it's Mike's magic juice or magic sauce. It's just water.
In our heads, it helped. But again, when you're first-time parents, you have no idea what you're doing, and you have no idea what to expect of what's normal versus what's not normal. So he was a little bit fussier. He wasn't a great sleeper at first. I was 5 weeks postpartum, and being a pre and postnatal coach, I knew the importance of movement. And up until that point, we would still walk daily. We were getting outside daily for walks, but I was ready to start doing some more intentional deep core movement, mobility, slowly getting back to the weights. So I gave him to you. I vividly remember this day. I gave him to you, shut the basement door, went downstairs, and I literally just heard him screaming with you basically the entire time. So in that moment, I had two choices. I could be 10 minutes into my workout and stop and go back upstairs and try to fix and help you as best as I could, which me being there didn't always make him stop crying. It's not like I was there and he stopped and it was all fine and dandy. When he was crying, he was upset no matter what. So I could either go do that, or I could continue the rest of my workout, which was maybe 20 minutes more. And then let you figure it out on your own. And that's what I did. Was it easy? No. Was it did I feel like my heart was tugging me to go to my crying baby? Yes. If you're a mom, even if you're a dad, probably you know the feeling of a crying baby is just
run. Get out.
You just are, it's almost painful, right? So that day I made the choice to continue my workout despite knowing that I could also stop it and go help him. And the reason why I chose that is because I knew that if I didn't give you a chance to learn how to be a dad, we were setting the tone that day for the future. And as somebody who's home with me, we were both working full time at that point. I knew that I couldn't always be the one to fix things when it came to parenting our kids. I needed to give you that space and that time to figure it out. So I gave you a chance to parent, and I gave Kai a chance to be calmed down by you. That was really what and why I was doing it. It wasn't I hate my baby, I'm going to keep working out because I want to lose all my baby weight and blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of people took this post and just, I mean, it's fine if you don't agree with it, but the comments were like, this post went viral to my standards. It has 6,000 likes, 250 comments, 500 people shared it. And most of the comments are positive. Like I will say, most of them are incredible, whether they were from new moms saying like, I needed to see this today. This gives me permission to show up for myself. Like that was my intent in sharing it, like to give other moms that permission to take a few minutes to themselves. Ironically, the only negative comments are from people who don't follow me, number one. So they have no idea the full context, I guess, of the story, and that it was 5 years ago and that we have incredible kids and they've grown up to be independent and loving and empathetic. And I mean, Kai still cuddles with us every day. It's not like he grew up and now he hates his mom because I left him crying with you. So it's funny because social media, people will just like blurt out whatever's on their mind. But there were quite a few of other moms specifically calling me selfish, saying that they would never do this. They would never leave their baby crying. The list goes on. You guys can go read them if you want to be triggered. But I just thought it was crazy that me sharing this story that happened 5 years ago was so triggering for a lot of people. And it was kind of a hot topic. But in my opinion, I think it's something that we need to talk about more. And by the way, I finished the post with this. I said, some people may call that selfish, but I choose to believe it set my family unit up for success, and it allowed me to take better care of myself from the start, which in turn allowed me to care for my son better. So if you're struggling with prioritizing yourself in the midst of being a mom, here's your reminder that motherhood is not easy, but you will all benefit from you taking care of yourself. I think it's like, to me, it's hard to argue with that. But I mean, I guess people will argue with anything. Most people aren't rational. So anyway, I thought it would be a good topic to discuss more in depth here. We can get your side of things. We can kind of dive into just this topic of self-care and motherhood and how most moms are not supported to take care of themselves, number one, but also how other moms can just be so judgmental and bring their own shame and guilt and whatever they're struggling with out into the world. Like, it's just ironic to me that it's typically other moms who are the meanest when it comes to posts like this.
Well, listen, I think nothing that we do is normal in any aspect of our lives. Our lifestyles, the way we raise our kids, the standards we set and the regimens and routines we have in place are not normal, but that has served us in our situation extremely well. And it's, allowed us to be independent of each other. It's allowed our kids to be independent from one or both of us. And it's just not the norm. And people aren't used to seeing things outside of their norm. And that's where a lot of this stuff gets triggering, is how can you do that if I can't do that? How can you go do these things? And obviously, I think one of the main arguments I saw when I was skimming through, I didn't waste too much time because I'm not about toxic culture, but the one that might have a little backing would be, well, they need their mother for the first 6 weeks. Sometimes that's the only person who's able to console them in that period. But at the same time, what happens if that mother has to take a shower or has to go to the bathroom or has to go do something? Let's say they are a single parent and they literally have to survive. If you're running yourself ragged, regardless of whether or not that baby's crying for 15 minutes or not, or 30 minutes or not, you have nothing to give to that baby, and the baby can sense that like anybody else. It's out in your aura. You can sense that negativity. You can sense that frustration. You can sense all of these things that are anything but loving. And I know those of you in that situation are doing it from a place of love and care, and you want to be there for them. But if you're pouring from an empty cup, everyone around you knows that. You don't have anything beyond the bare minimum to give to anyone else, your kids included. So there is a time and a place to be quote unquote selfish, whether it is in this or anything else that we talk about. But if you aren't taking care of yourself in the most efficient way possible during the hardest times, you aren't giving the best that you can to those who you are working so hard to appease.
And some people may say, well, how will a baby know that? How will a kid know that you're giving out this energy, or like you aren't taking care of yourself.
If they can smell you, they can sense you.
That, but also if you are not prioritizing any type of self-care and you are in that position, I guarantee you are not as patient, you are not as kind, you are not as calm and peaceful and just supportive in that sense, because you don't have anything left. Like your cup is overflowing compared to somebody who does, or sorry, your cup is empty compared to somebody who does have a more full cup because they prioritize self-care. They're going to have more patience. Like I think of it on a smaller scale. When we don't have our me time in the morning and we are woken up by the kids at 6:59 and go right into parent mode, our fuse is shorter, right or wrong.
Correct.
And I would guarantee most of you can relate to that. So I'm not out here saying we're perfect parents, but I will always support the idea that mothers need to prioritize their self-care, because you can also bring in the idea and the whole topic of postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety and all of these very serious things that a lot of women go through. If we had more support on a bigger scale and smaller scale, like obviously there's going to be varying levels here, but just generally speaking, if we had more support and more push to prioritize that self-care as new moms, I guarantee you those numbers would decrease dramatically. And I think I just saw a post or a study that was recently shared, and it said, it was something along the lines of like, and this gets into the topic of maternity leave, but like, I forget which country it was, just extended their maternity leave policies by 2 months. So it was like not just 2 months, but it was 2 months on top of what they already were. And most countries will give you 6 months to a year, or sometimes even 2 years of maternity leave for the mom, and the dad sometimes gets
Imagine
a full
your
year.
taxes actually working for you.
It's incredible. That is not the reality here in America currently, which is sad, and in my opinion does contribute to things like postpartum depression, anxiety. There's a lot of other factors at play here. But my point is that, you know, if we start to prioritize even just the most basic of things, a 20-minute workout, a 20-minute meditation session, a 20-minute walk by yourself, like those small little things can have such a big impact. And we talk about this all the time on the podcast, not just for moms, but just in general. So that was my point in sharing. There's something else I wanted to say with that, and I completely just lost it. It's gone. But I feel like as moms, it's a non-negotiable for us to start to prioritize these things if we want to show up in our best way. As our best selves.
And I'll also say, as a dad, I mean, it's less common to be arguing from this side, but as a dad, the same applies to you. Like if you are in the trenches just as much, stay-at-home dad, or you get home from work and you're with the kids on that, like you still have to fill out whatever you can as far as your time as well. Like prioritizing yourself, getting the workout in, hitting the golf course. I know it sounds like a joke saying it from this side, but that being said, it's not the norm that the dad is the one getting the shaft in this regard, but it is part of the equation. I am a 50% parent, not 50%, but I take 50% of the workload as a parent here. So I'm in that. That being said, for those of you who do just view this crying baby as, oh, you know what, it's inconsolable, hand it right back off, step the fuck up. Like understand that you have to figure it out too, especially beyond that early period.
You're talking to dads right now.
Dads.
Yes.
Not alienating a bunch of angry moms right now.
Just
to dads specifically. Step the fuck up. Figure it out, especially like, even during that early on period. Like I was doing it from day one. Like if it's crying, I'm trying to figure it out.
And it's uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable for you.
It's very uncomfortable.
It's,
it's a new thing, especially as a new parent. If it's not your first kid, if it's your second, your third, your fifth, you figure it out and you learn to deal with it. But even beyond that period, so earlier on, yeah, it is more mom heavy, especially if they're breastfeeding, but play a role there. And then after that period, when they are crying, we don't just hand them back. You figure it out. Go for a walk outside. Distract them. Figure out how they can look to you as that source of comfort. You were in Nantucket this weekend, and I mean, we've been doing this for a while. So with you away for whatever reason, this is the best behaved they have been maybe ever. But that is because of the time that I have put in with them. And
right.
like it's when Cora comes to me, It's daddy time. It's not where's mommy. It's let's go do something. Let's go play. She'll tell me, we'll walk around, we'll go do whatever. But there is certainly, and just talking about it in the majority of cases, so this isn't speaking to everybody, but the dad kind of gets to do his own thing while the kids figure it out with the mom. And it's not the way that it should be.
That's the societal norm.
That is the societal norm.
That's not our norm. And that's never really been our norm. And we are grateful to be in a position where you are home with us all the time. Like, so it took us a long time in many conversations, and it wasn't always this way. Like, we had to definitely be open and talk it through and try new things and figure it out.
But we've always parented in shifts. It's not like I was out doing my thing. No,
I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, like, whenever something came up where we were in a harder spot, we would talk about it and figure out, okay, we'll try this. This is what we'll try to do to figure this out. So communication is key. And I find a lot of moms, whether you're new moms or just generally speaking, like a lot of the conversations that I have in the DMs, they're opening up to me about like what they're frustrated with, or maybe their husband isn't stepping up, or they feel like everything's on them, but they haven't talked about it to their husband at all. They haven't brought it up in a way. And when I say bring it up, I'm not saying wait until you're blowing up and having a mental breakdown and exploding on your husband. Like, talk about it beforehand and figure out a plan beforehand so that you guys can work together and figure out what's going to be best for you. Because more often than not, those women, maybe they haven't opened up to their husband at all about how they're feeling. They go do it and they come up with a plan together, and it's great. But remember that your husband cannot read your mind, and this goes both ways. So communication truly is key, especially if you do feel like you're suffering and you feel like you're drowning and you feel like there's so much on your plate. Talk to him and figure out, like, can you handle, like, I remember even with Cora this second time around, you basically took over everything except for Cora related stuff the first few weeks. Like, you were on Kai duty. First few months. You were on Kai duty. You handled the dogs and feeding them and taking them out. Most of the chores for the first few weeks, you were making my meals too. So you stepped up in those ways, even though I did have to be with Cora most of the time to breastfeed and figure out all that stuff. So my point is, talk to your partner, your husband, whoever's helping you with the baby, if you have that support, and figure out what's going to work best for you.
So what does that conversation even look like? Obviously depends on your situation. Obviously we're work from home, both of us, and that is a blessing. Like, we have decided to make this our life. This was our goal when we started our businesses, was to be able to work from home and be with our kids. So we completely understand that is absolutely a luxury, and most people aren't in that situation. So to reverse engineer that conversation for, if this is your situation or any other, figure out, what do your schedules look like? Who's working? Who's home? Are you both working? Are you both home? And when I say reverse engineer, I mean in the most trying times of when you're in the trenches, how much can you do is it one thing that you can do for yourself, two things that you can do for yourself a day? So a workout and a walk by yourself, if that's what you need, or with the family. But anyway, plan the two things, the one thing, whatever it is that you can squeeze in for yourself. Do that first, and then divide the rest of the day. What does the rest of the day look like? How do you make those puzzle pieces fit? Solve that algebra equation ahead of time, starting with what you need to fill your cup. Obviously, that's not going to be the first thing you do every day, but figure out where that time slots in and build the rest of your day and the shifts and the scheduling around those things. But keeping communication open, understanding that you're both on the same team and it's not me versus you and this and that, and don't keep points. Figure out what is going to work for you based on who is where and when.
Yeah, and your needs are going to change over time too. So I love that you said that, because a lot of the time too, the women that I talk to, they don't even know what they need. Like, they don't even know what their two things are. So figure out what those two things may be in this season, and then make sure you're also adapting it as seasons change and as the baby gets older, and like as you do have more time for things. Like, make sure you're always making these things fit your current season of life.
And even get into, what do you want to do versus what is going to help you the most. Like, you might just want to go take a nap for 45 minutes. And there's going to be a period where you need that. If the kid's up every hour for the first few weeks, yeah, that's fine. But once you get through that, think about prioritizing what you need versus what you want. And what I mean by that is like, can you go get the workout in? Like the workout's going to give you more energy. It's going to boost your endorphins. Your mental health is going to improve significantly. That's going to be your biggest bang for the buck. Outside of sleeping adequately, working out is going to be your biggest bang for the buck. From that point, you know, your mental health, what else are you prioritizing in that regimen? If it's, again, the walk, just mindfulness, taking a walk, getting outside in nature, lay down in your yard for 20 minutes, meditate, do what you got. I used to do it all the time. It was so great.
It was slightly concerning looking out the window of the kitchen.
And it was always in the front yard.
Seeing
so the
Josh
neighbors just think I'm dead.
Face up.
But again, journaling, meditation, your training. Once you get through the survival mode, it's not necessarily what you want. I want to watch TV for 3 hours before bed. Go read a book, go wind down, do the things that are actually going to be net positives and not necessarily just the decompression. You do need to decompress, but what is going to give you the highest ROI across the board to add value and give you energy back and allow you to thrive again as fast as possible?
Yeah. So that's the side of this conversation where I wanted to touch on like prioritizing self-care as a new mom. The other side is dealing with the judgment and shame and guilt, not from what's going on internally, but from others. And I think the best piece of advice that I have for you guys here, because I mean, we all deal with this. We have judgment from people. Maybe it's family members, maybe it's friends, maybe it's just if you post your life on the internet like me, like people are judging you all the time. Remember, it's not their life that you're living. It's your life. And it doesn't matter what they think. It truly doesn't. Like their opinion does not need to have any sort of impact on you at all. And when it comes to just mom shaming from other moms, I truly think that just stems from a place of fear and insecurity in them. So it's like you kind of said in the beginning, they're just in the mindset of, well, I can never do that. So I'm going to put this negative energy out and judge this person because I never believed that I could do that. It just feels so unrealistic and unnatural and probably even scary to them, or it just makes them honestly view their life and maybe just they're not happy in some way. So I think any sort of negativity that comes from other people, you have to remember it's coming from their unhappiness and their own issues they have going on. It's not necessarily anything that you're actually doing. It's what you're doing is making them look inward, and that's scary.
Yeah, it's easier to project negativity outward than it is to inwardly reflect, could this benefit me in any way, shape, or form? There was a tangent I wanted to run on. I totally lost it.
Mom shaming.
Yeah, so looking into, again, we talk about this all the time, but nothing we do is normal. And allowing external opinions to shape your life in any way, shape, form, any capacity is one of the worst things you could do. Obviously, the standard of normal, especially around here, is slightly above trash, I would say. Like it's horrendous. Normal sucks in just about every department.
Yeah.
So for you to let societal norms and opinions based on those norms affect your decisions that are steering your life, the ship of your life, is one of the biggest mistakes you could make in your entire life. So figuring out, and that's going to be trial and error. Some things you're going to try are going to be not great. And some things you're going to try, I'm like, wow, why haven't I been doing this forever? Why haven't I always done this? So, we talk about a lot being pretty selfish in a lot of the decisions we make for our family because we have to be. Certain things we cut out without even thinking twice. It's an instant no. You want to do this? Can you do that? Nope. Because the main things, especially right now, are family and business. We have a lot of shit going on, and to be where we want to be and to take the leaps and strides that we need to take and to maintain, where we are as a family, those are the two things we have space for right now. Building our businesses and taking care of each other. Everything, like we don't see friends very often right now. Occasionally, on the weekend, we'll have them over for dinner. We'll go out and meet someone somewhere. Exactly. Very low key. These extravagant events, they don't exist. Even
aside from the wedding activities we have going on.
Aside from the necessities.
Those were planned though. It's not like, so we've had a lot of things planned, and then basically life has happened in the last month where there's going to be some big changes coming, and we are going from reaching the top level of our business as far as like building it from the ground up to CEO status. We're going back to that grind, that first 3-year grind, in a sense, of just the time and effort and the amount of work that we're doing right now.
The investments.
So it's a huge shift in our workload happening. It's an investment, all for good reason. But with that shift happening, there's a lot that needs to be deprioritized. And you can relate this back to your fitness. If you're a fellow business owner, whatever it is, if you want to succeed in a certain area, there's going to be things that you need to deprioritize in other areas for you to succeed. And that's not to say you have to do that forever. But again, seasons of life. This is a push season for us in many ways. So we have to reconstruct what everything else is looking like. But we're also not letting our family unit fall to the wayside with that either. So it's that balance of, these are our top 2 priorities right now. Everything else is kind of like, if we have time for it, great. Most of the time, we're probably going to have to say no, and that's okay.
When you look at it, and for most people in our country, and maybe for many of you listeners, when your life depends on a scenario, when your life depends on a circumstance, and when I say many listeners in most of our country, it's your health, you're overweight, you haven't been making great decisions, and it's kind of just the way the norm of society has shaped it. Like, not even necessarily saying you're making all these wrong decisions, but as you go with the normal flow, this is just what happens. So if you can identify that, become aware of that, create the change. That's our slogan. Through awareness, we create change.
Our
podcast slogan, through awareness, we create change. But be the change, make the change for yourself, and the ripple effect affects everyone else. But if you can become aware, hey, this is affecting my life in a very negative way, or my life depends on this moving in this trajectory moving forward, making those sacrifices and being selfish, quote unquote, it's not actually selfish, but quote unquote selfish, is going to be a lot easier. So in this shift in our life, the things that we have going on right now, all of our cards are on the table. It is a huge, huge leap that we're taking. And it's extremely easy. I don't know how easy it is for you right now, but it's extremely easy for me to just be like, nah, not going to happen. Nope, not doing that, not doing that. It's this. 7 days a fucking week until we reach, if you want to call it a safety net, a floating device. A threshold. Once we get to a threshold where we can come up for air again, reevaluate. Right now, there is no coming up for air. It is work. It is business. It is family, taking care of each other, building this thing. So again, for those of you who are in that survival mode as early parents, for those of you who are recognizing, hey, I am not in a healthy place, it's not time to come up for air. It's time to create the changes. It's time to fix and come up with resolutions, or reach out, invest in helpful resolutions. It's not always going to be, I can figure this out on my own. We've done periods of that. Right now, it's figuring out together. It's been hiring mentors. It's been investing in our systems. There comes a time when you are doing things that are not working that you need to invest in further guidance and further help in order to alleviate a lot of those issues and to rise above a lot of those things. And then again, you come up for air. You see progress. You keep that momentum, but you come up for air. You say, yes, this is working. Reevaluate. Cycle continues. A lot of people just settle. That was a word I wanted to bring up earlier in this conversation. You're settling for what you believe to be normal. You're settling for, I can't get help because my spouse is working, then they come home and they're tired. Settling is a dirty word. We will not settle. I implore you to never settle. If you are not happy in any way, shape, or form, don't settle for that being the norm. Yes, there will be sacrifices. Yes, there are going to be circumstances that you're going to have to grind through. But these aren't lifelong periods of settling. Get that out of your vocabulary.
I think we've reached a point in, I don't know, society, business. I see it in the business side of things, like just floating around the internet, and just in general, where people are just complacent. They're just kind of coasting. They don't believe they have to do the grind and really like dive head first into things anymore. It can kind of just be like, oh, I'll coast through this and I'll make it and it'll be great. If you truly want to succeed, you do have to have a period or periods of grinding. And I'm not ashamed to say that, because that has gotten us to where we are today, and it will get us to where we want to be in the near future. But I think we've almost just embraced this mindset of rest, and I don't even know what else to call it, but just here's your reminder to embrace the grind.
Let's wrap it up here. Where can they find you?
I'm at Alessandra Skutnik.
I'm at Josh Skutnik.
Everything else is linked in the show notes.